Welcome into the Shot Show. I'm your host, Wyatt Shot, and today we are finally breaking down a football game. It is Texas at Ohio State Week 1. The setup looks a little bit different. We got the camera going. We got OBS right here on the screen. We're going to be in a professional podcasting room soon. I just couldn't wait any longer. I needed to get a video out, and I wanted to do it on Texas Ohio State Week 1. So let's cover some Week 1 stuff, you know? Let's cover some Week 1 stuff. And this is the biggest game of... This is the game of the century, according to everybody. You know, according to the media, this is the game to define all football games. And both teams will be dragged through the mud if they lose, like you will never see. Their season will be over with, and they'll never accomplish anything ever again. Of course, that is not the case. And either of the whoever loses this game can go on to win the national championship very easily. You know, in the 12-team playoff era, it's not that big of a deal. Now, there's a couple angles I want to go at with this. The first one being just the stage of this game. You know, this is not only just the obvious, like two top-tier programs, number 1 versus number 2 in the coaches poll. Arch Manning versus Jeremiah Smith. You have some of the biggest names in the sport. Steve Sarkisian versus Ryan Day. But to play a team that you just played, like you just saw them. They were the last team you played for Texas. They were the second to last team you played for Ohio State. And then to play them in your opener is unprecedented. On top of that, both of y'all are starting new quarterbacks. You both lost at least 12 guys to the NFL draft, including some extra guys that graduated that ended up being picked up in NFL free agency. And so these are two completely different teams, but they just played each other. And both teams are fresh on each other's mind. Now, there's a couple of different angles I want to go at this with, okay? The first one being the Texas offensive line versus the Ohio State defensive line, okay? Now, the Texas O-line is losing 4 starters. Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor, Jake Majors, and Cam Williams all gone to the NFL. And Ohio State's defensive line is replacing a number of guys as well, particularly Jack Sawyer. And so you're getting 2 revamped groups. The kid on Ohio State's defensive line, Houston, he had an injury scare in training camp, but he seems to be fine, and he'll be good to go for the game. So good news for him and Ohio State. But Texas has not only had to revamp their offensive line, they also have some injury concerns. Trevor Gooseby, who is a new starter for them, but he's kind of like their guy. Like he is the guy that that's the franchise left tackle right there. He's got banged up in training camp. It's a hand injury / finger injury. It's kind of been murky details, but he's expected to play. It's just if that gets re-aggravated, which it seems like that's something that could easily get re-aggravated, what is that going to look like for Texas? Because the guy backing him up, Andre Kojo, tore his ACL in fall camp and is out for the season. So you're either relying on true freshman Nick Brooks, who has really, really, really impressed the Texas staff. He was an early enrollee from Buford, Georgia, and he showed up in the spring and really turned some heads, and he was kind of on that second-team offensive line right away. He's every bit of 6'7", 350. He's huge. It's not about like being physically ready to play. It's about mentally being ready to play. And then also you have Jaden Chapman. Sorry, I almost said Peyton Kirkland. I get those two guys confused all the time. But Jaden Chapman's back there as well. He's played some tackle. There's also like a world where they kick out DJ Campbell from right guard to right tackle because they want to keep experience in. And then you go Cole Hudson at right guard instead of center. And then you go Connor Robertson at center, who's usually the backup to Cole Hudson. Neto Umeozulu is kind of the only consistent piece of this. He's going to be your starting left guard. I mean, DJ Campbell's going to be your starting right guard no matter what. I'm just talking about like if injuries happen, Neto is not moving out of left guard. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is just the complete inverse, which is the Texas defensive line versus the Ohio State offensive line. Bobby Burden on Texas Football interviewed, I cannot remember the man's name, but it was basically a longtime reporter for Ohio State football, and Bobby was asking him about the season, and he confidently said that this might be one of the best Ohio State offensive lines that they've had ever, like in Ohio State's history, which is kind of crazy to say, but he said easily the best one under Ryan Day. And so that kind of flips the narrative because people were really assuming that Texas was going to get after Ohio State with Colin Simmons and Colton Vasek and Trey Moore and Anthony Hill and all these pass rushers, Ethan Burke. And now they're talking about like this might be one of the best offensive lines Ohio State's ever had. And so Texas is also replacing a lot on the interior. You lose Alfred Collins, and you lose Vernon Broughton, and you lose Jermaine Lole, and you lose Bill Norton. you replace them with some really talented players. Alex January was actually a freshman last year and played a meaningful snaps in that Ohio State game. He's coming into a sophomore year looking to break out. You also bring in the freshman All-American Murad Watson from Syracuse. You bring in Cole Brevard from Purdue. You bring in Travis Shaw from North Carolina. So you replace the size and you replace the bodies, but with the transfer portal, you never understand. Like you don't know what you're getting with these guys. You can only assume. And I think that Texas is confident in the guys that they got, but Ohio State's confident in the guys that they got. So that's a huge matchup that you want to watch. The next thing I want to talk about is the Texas receiver room, and the first guy that we need to discuss is the man you see on your screen, and that is Ryan Wingo. Texas loses Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond this season, and that's a ton of production. And they need a guy to step up and be that number one alpha receiver. Texas kind of had an alpha receiver the past 2 years with A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, and then, of course, Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden, as I just mentioned. I think this receiving group is going to be a little bit more similar to the 2022 Texas Longhorns, where you had Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington as kind of like your 1 and 2, which not like your true number 1 and number 2 type guys. And then you had like Casey Kane in there who ended up washing out at UNLV. But Ryan Wingo brings you the ability to have a downfield number 1 wide receiver, jump ball, 1,000-yard type guy. Okay, like he is the prototypical NFL build. He's 6'2". He's fast. He can fly. If you saw that Michigan game, the end around that he nearly took for a touchdown, it was like a 55-yard run. Ryan Wingo has that speed, but he really needs to step up and be that alpha receiver and be able to separate. Now, something that I do want to talk about is the Texas receiving room, like as a whole. I question it just a tad. I know that there have been a lot of buzz about guys stepping up, specifically Parker Livingstone. Dalen McCutcheon's also had a good. You have DeAndre Moore coming back. You have the other freshmen and Khalil Lockett and Jimmy French. It's just these guys are going to have to grow up fast, and I wonder what is it going to look like with them creating separation against some of the top defensive backs in the country. I know that Ohio State isn't going to be known for an elite secondary this year, but you still have. And you don't have to create space against Caleb Downs. You know, he's a safety. He's roaming the field. I'm mainly talking about cornerback matchups. One in particular is going to be Devin Sanchez, the true freshman from North Shore High School in Houston, Texas, that Texas and Texas A&M missed out on, and he chose Ohio State over them. He's going to get a lot of play early because he's just that good. And I wonder if these wide receivers who are a bit taller and a bit lankier compared to what you've had at Texas lately, are they going to be able to create separation consistently? They could. They very easily could. I just haven't seen it yet, and so I question it a tiny bit. That's going to make life a little bit harder for Arch Manning, and that's going to make life a little bit harder for the offensive line, and then you really start getting bogged down, and things could get a little bit ugly. Now, there's also a world where Texas receivers are feasting against Ohio State's defensive backs. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just raising the question, okay? The next question I want to raise is, what is the game plan? What is the approach you're going to take with the Ohio State receiving corps, particularly to defend that man pictured right there, Jeremiah Smith? Now, I was watching The Film Guy on YouTube, great YouTube channel. I was watching his breakdown of Texas versus Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl last year. And he pointed out something that Texas insiders had kind of been hinting at for a while, which is Texas didn't really send all out to stop Jeremiah Smith. Now, they played too high, and they played a lot of bracket coverage. Like, let's not act like they didn't just play one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith all night and hold him to four yards on a one catch. Okay, that's not what happened. They put a lot of resources towards stopping Jeremiah Smith. It's just that they weren't consistently double teaming him. They had bracket coverage, but like they were focused on stopping the run and allowing the Texas defense to play fast and play physical and play free. They allowed their defensive backs to be in one-on-one coverage with Jeremiah Smith in the back end and allow them to make plays on the ball and break it up. Andrew Makuba had one in the end zone that really it stopped the touchdown. Jeremiah Smith went up, Makuba's there, Jahdae Barron also joins him, and they break up the pass. Both of those guys that I just mentioned are gone for Texas, okay? You also lose some of those big defensive linemen up front that allowed you to play too high shell. So stopping the run is going to allow you to stop the pass. Ohio State also loses its two best running backs. TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are in the NFL. Now you're playing James Peoples from Veterans Memorial, San Antonio, Texas, and he's got to play some big-time ball for Ohio State. Can he do it? We'll see. I just wonder what Texas's approach is. I think they tried to do the same things last time. Bracket Jeremiah Smith, play one-on-one against Carnell Tate, which is a tall task in and of itself, and then play light boxes against the run. and trust your guys to go stop them. Now, if Ohio State's offensive line is as good as they're saying it is, that could be a problem, and they'll have to adjust. We'll see. Finally, the last thing you want to talk about is the quarterback matchup and who has the advantage, right? I think Texas has the advantage personally, okay? I think that Julian Saint's going to be good. I think he's going to have a good career. I just know that it's tough making your first start against big-time competition. Like, it's just difficult. And Arch Manning's also making his first big-time start, okay? Don't get it twisted. Julian Saint has better receivers to throw it to. He has a better offensive line. I'm just saying he hasn't seen the bullets fly like Arch has in his games against Mississippi State in the start against ULM. Say what you want about the competition. It's not about the competition. You could be playing on air, okay? I care about the fact that the stadium was filled with 100,000 people, and he had to make real decisions, real checks at the line of scrimmage. He actually had to look at the safeties and see what kind of coverage they were in. He had to see if they were disguising stuff. He had to get sacked. He had to get hit. He had to throw incompletions and not lose his head. He had to hear his teammates complain. It's these little things that you just build up over time, and can that overwhelm a first-time starting quarterback, especially when the pressure is on you of not losing in front of your home fans, defending a national title. These are real things that you have to think about. I think Julian Saint's more than capable of doing it throughout his career. I just question him doing it against one of the best defenses in college football in his first career start, okay? Now, with that being said, let's get to my prediction. This one was tough. It's at Ohio State. Texas is breaking in a lot of new pieces. I just think that the most important part is the staff continuity. And for that reason, I have Texas going into the Columbus, into the Horseshoe, and winning 27-20. I think Arch Manning's going to have a good game. I think he's going to cement himself as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I think he's going to show like, hey, the hype's legit. I can play ball. Because some people think that Arch Manning sucks. I don't know why. I don't know what reason they have to think that, but some people think he sucks, and I think he's going to prove that he doesn't. Brian Hartline's going to be calling plays for the first time in his college coaching career. Matt Patricia hasn't been good at his job that he's been hired to do since 2016. That's all. I know Matt Patricia is a good coach, a defensive mind, okay? I know that. It's just he's never done it at the college level. And he didn't succeed as a head coach in the NFL, and he didn't succeed as a coordinator after that. I just wonder, does all of this come together immediately week one, also with your freshman starting quarterback? I say no. That's why Texas is my pick. Thank y'all so much for watching. This has been The Shot Show. I hope you appreciate the new little setup. Things they look a little bit cooler around here, and they're going to get even cooler with the new podcasting setup. It's going to be like a 4K camera. Like, it's going to look really, really nice. Thank you so much for watching. Stick with it. I'm going to have more breakdowns in the future. We might go live. We might have a live show that's an hour long, and you can join in and watch, and then I'll cut up the videos and post them to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Wyatt Shot, and thank you for watching The Shot Show.